Hey everyone, this is Processing Trauma Out Loud with Candace and Sher, although today it's just me. I wanted to have an opportunity to talk with you for a few minutes about doing a little bit of a follow up on what we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we asked this question of ourselves, and then we asked it of you too. Where are you finding yourself? And I'm really curious. I wish that I was sitting with you and we were having this conversation. And I would love to be able to ask you, where are you finding yourself? And wherever you are finding yourself, how does it feel to be here right now at this place in time? I remember when I was really young, about, I'm going to say 14 or 15 years old. We had just started going to a new church. I had joined a youth group. It was a very new and different experience for me, as I began to encounter people who were just really different than the people who were a part of my normal life. And it was a small Swedish church, and all of the people that went there were Swedish, and they were just really gentle souls. And not perfect, I'm sure, but as a 14 or 15-year-old, I was really drawn, and I began to notice that the way that they did life, the way that they did relationships was just very different than what I had known. And I began to recognize that I really didn't like the place where I was finding myself. I didn't like the ways that I was reactionary or the ways that I expressed myself. I started to discover that I wanted to become more and more like them, like these people who were speaking into my life in some ways that were really very significant, including the woman who was our youth group leader, one of our leaders who really did plug into my life and became a mentor, who walked with me through all of my high school years and beyond. And she had a profound impact on my life of just helping me begin to recognize that, hey, if you find yourself in a place where you don't like what you see, well, what should we do about that? What do you want to do about that? And we would just engage in these conversations where we would talk a lot about who I was and how I wished that I could change. And she began to just offer me options and help me see pathways that I really had never seen before. And I think one of the things that is so true, particularly for us who have experienced childhood trauma, is that a lot of times we feel like we cannot see the options. It seems like there's only one way, or maybe there's the way we do it and then another way that either we cannot attain or that feels very dangerous or threatening in some way to everything that is meaningful. And so a lot of times we continue to walk these same paths on and on and on throughout our lives, not because we like where we find ourselves, but because the prospect of making changes either feels impossible or on some level, maybe even dangerous. I want to talk about this today because I think so often, and we've talked about this on the podcast so many times, that we find ourselves in these places, and the fact is we can't see what we don't see. We can't know what we don't know. And we are often in dire need of someone to offer another voice, another way, another option. And yet, sometimes as adults, it's hard to find. I mean, as kids too, I think it's hard to find mentors. But I think as adults, it can be really difficult to take that risk to reach out and ask somebody for help, or to try to begin a relationship with someone and see if we can make a connection that would feel meaningful. Of course, as you have heard Candace and me say many times on the podcast, we're big believers in hiring that person, whether it be a coach or a therapist, because sometimes finding them just out there in the wild is really hard. And there are people who are trained and who are passionate and who feel that it's the thing that brings them the most joy in life is to sit next to someone and talk about these spaces. I'm bringing it up again because I know that we often are struggling with the same things over and over. And a lot of times it seems that the harder we try to make changes, the more stuck we feel. That no matter how hard we try, no matter what we read or experiment with, it's like we keep coming back to these same places again and again. And from our understanding of brain science, we now know this is due to the neural pathways that our brain holds, and that our brain will keep replaying the same actions, reactions, choices, sabotages, conflicts. Our brain will keep doing the same thing over and over because that is what it knows in order to help us survive, because that is the single priority of our brain, is to help us survive. And sometimes that survival even means that we replay the same negative behaviors or hurtful behaviors, or behaviors that cause us to end up in the same predicaments over and over. And I think a lot of times we just ask ourselves, why am I here again? Or why am I still here? Why can I not make progress? Why can I not move on? Why can I not achieve some of the changes that I really long for in my life? And I think a lot of that also includes, why can I not feel joy? Or why can I not feel loved? These places of deep longing and desire that frankly we have held since childhood and never been able to find the thing that will fill that hole in our soul, or find the way that can help us walk a path that will lead us to different outcomes. I'm talking about this because I think a lot of us are stuck. And I know for me, and you've heard me talk about this on the podcast, I was stuck for a long, long time in my life in ways that I really wanted to change. I really wanted to experience fulfillment, satisfaction, completion, wholeness, freedom, joy, connection, value, meaning. And yet I found myself often replaying the same scenarios that kept me from having this sense that I love my life. I kept hearing people talking about, if you want to live the life that you love, do A, B, and C. And I even tried. I bought a lot of those classes, actually, because I wanted to figure out how to live a life that I truly loved. And I can tell you that I really am experiencing that kind of life on such a more meaningful level now than I ever have before. I know a lot of people hate the thought of growing older, but I can tell you, like, I have loved aging. Actually, I think as I have aged, I have found more and more exquisite people who have been able to walk this path with me to help me find meaning and substance and wholeness in ways that have mattered so much to me. And why am I talking about this? I'm talking about it because I know that a lot of our listeners feel like they're stuck, that they don't know how to move forward. They've tried 100 things, or they've tried 3 things, and no matter what they try, they find themselves back in the same places. And oftentimes those places we find ourselves make us feel very young and cause us to feel like, oh, here I am again feeling like I'm 7 years old. And I had that feeling through so much of my life where I would be with people, but I felt like I was sitting on the edge and that they were all adultish and they were all functioning in healthy kinds of ways. But I felt like I was 7 years old sitting on the side trying to figure out, like, how can I join in a way that's not going to make me feel like I'm just being foolish or that I'm totally missing what it is that they're saying. There's a lot of pain in being in that kind of a place and of being in any stuck place where these young places keep popping up over and over. And of course, I'm talking about the places where we got stuck because of trauma. And that is what trauma does. It causes our brain to get stuck. We can get stuck developmentally there. We, especially emotionally, developmentally, to where we can really get stuck at age 7 years old or 9 or 13 or whatever. Like we can't seem to move beyond that because every time we do, we experience some kind of uncomfortable sensations in our body. A lot of times it's anxiety. It's this anxiety of I'm going to do something stupid, I'm going to look like a fool, I'm going to be laughed at or ridiculed. The whole world is going to discover that I'm a fraud. These kind of, these kind of messages that pop up and can take us out in a second. So, what do we do? How do we begin to experience changes in these places that have historically been really difficult for us? And I know I'm a little redundant when I say you need help. We say that all the time on the podcast. Like, we cannot do this work on our own. We literally cannot heal from our childhood trauma or from any trauma on our own. We need the eyes of someone else. We need the attunement of somebody who can see us as we were back in that moment. So if as a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 2-year-old, you experienced something that caused trauma, it might have been intended. It might have not been intended. It could have been someone shouting in a way that maybe it was a warning or maybe it was someone losing their temper. But it could be a shout. It could be a sound. It could be a tone of voice. It could be, it could have been some kind of abuse or neglect or abandonment. The things that kids experience, I will say many times are horrible. Like, kids go through things that are horrible and tragic and should not happen, but do happen. And I know that for a lot of our listeners, you experienced things in your life that were truly in the category of horrible. And I just want to say with so much compassion, like, there's no way that you can work out of that on your own. And that there are people who have been trained to be able to come alongside of you and help you. I want this for you because I have experienced it and I am experiencing it. I literally spoke with someone today about an area where I was feeling like I have been stuck. And she was able, just in maybe this 10-minute exchange that we had, she was able to validate what I was feeling. She was able to ask a couple of questions that gave me insight into, oh, yeah. And she was able to help me think about, okay, how can we work our way out of this? Like, what are some options? But before I could get to the options, I needed the attunement. I needed eyes that saw me. I needed someone that slowed down and heard me. I needed someone who was with me and who offered me understanding and compassion and kindness. These are the things that we need in these spaces. I want this for you. I want it for you really bad, badly. But here's the catch. I can't choose it for you. You're the only one who can choose it for you. Candace and I have offered many resources on the podcast, thebrokenandbeautiful.com, sothat.com, the Allender Center, Processing Trauma Out Loud. There are many people who can walk with you and help you begin to experience a life that is different than the stuck places that you have known for maybe 30 or 50 or 70 years, literally. Like, these places can be healed. The places where we have held deep, deep grief, where we have held perhaps harsh self-contempt and criticism, these places where we have shut down and turned away, or these places where we have spooled up and felt so anxious, we can experience healing. I want to encourage you to think again about, where are you finding yourself today? And where would you like to be? And can you find the courage to reach out and just take a step? Send us an email at candacesher@gmail.com, KANDACESHER@gmail.com. Let us know where you're at. Reach out and ask for help from us or from someone who can help you take the first step or the 10th step or the 100th step, whatever it may be. I care about you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak into your life today. I wish you well, and truly, I feel so much love for you in my heart.